Michael Bennett has had a really interesting NFL career path and trajectory. And it just goes to show you sometimes we know what we know, but we also don't know what we don't know. And when you look at a Michael Bennett coming from being undrafted out of Texas A&M in 2009, he was cut by, of all teams, the Seattle Seahawks before he lashed down for a few years with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He gets signed as a free agent by the Seahawks. He comes back before the start of the 2013 season on this tremendous bargain basement deal of 1 year, $4.8 million. Really one of the best free agent signings we've seen in the past decade of the National Football League. He was, to me, the key cog on that Super Bowl 48 championship Seahawks team, that great Legion of Boom defense. When people talk about the Richard Shermans and the Earl Thomases and the Cam Chancellors, to me it was Michael Bennett and the versatility that he provided to that Seahawks defensive line that made everything go. Even then, getting re-signed 4 years, $28.5 million, only $16 million guaranteed, another bargain contract. He ended up being a 3-time Pro Bowler during his time in Seattle. You look at Michael Bennett and you say, a guy that was undrafted, that all 32 NFL teams looked at and on multiple occasions took a pass on, up to and including the Seattle Seahawks and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He goes on to win a Super Bowl. He goes on to be a multiple-time Pro Bowler. He goes on to be one of the most important, versatile defensive line weapons in the National Football League. It's crazy how things play out. And as we are in the time of year where we start talking about the NFL draft and we focus on the combine and pro days and individual workouts, sometimes it takes a guy getting into a right opportunity. Sometimes you cannot measure the intangibles such as heart, desire, passion, work ethic. And clearly Michael Bennett had that, to go from being an undrafted guy to being a star in the National Football League. Now, with all that said, I don't think it catches anybody by surprise that Michael Bennett was going to potentially be on the move this offseason. Because the truth is, Michael Bennett is a strong personality, and that sometimes can be a hard personality to deal with. Not necessarily his fault, but it's just the way it is. And in a locker room full of strong and strong-willed personalities, Bennett just kind of adds to the quagmire, the schmaz of that in that Seahawks locker room. Also understanding that the Seahawks are recognizing that that defense got old. They're at the end of their run. And it's better to do something about it now to try and keep whatever glimmer of window you still have left open actually open. And then thinking about they'd be paying Michael Bennett a lot of money. He's going to be 33 this year. It seems like the time was right for a variety of different reasons for the Seahawks to get something for Michael Bennett while they could and get him out of there before the fan base starts to not like him or starts to hate him. You stay around long enough as the hero, you eventually become the villain. Not maybe in the grand scheme of things that matters a whole heck of a lot, but I would hate to have seen somebody like a Michael Bennett, who meant so much to the Seahawks over the past several seasons, where they've been a top-flight NFL team, and have a city, an organization, a fan base kind of look at him in a way that he frankly doesn't deserve to be looked at. So it makes total sense that the Seahawks made this deal. Be the ones to be the bad guys and send Michael Bennett out of town. Get something for him in return. Get some salary cap relief for the trade. It makes sense. Obviously, you're not going to get equivalent value back in a trade if you're the Seahawks, but you know that going into it, and you have to be okay with that. So when I found out on Wednesday that the Seahawks had traded for Michael Bennett away, I was not surprised. I understand it. I get it. And I think it's mutually beneficial for both parties, especially when I found out that they had traded Michael Bennett to the Philadelphia Eagles. That's right. The defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles now have added Michael Bennett to an already really good defensive line. Now, let me get this straight from the Eagles' standpoint. You're coming off of a Super Bowl victory where everybody's wondering what you're going to do with Nick Foles. And in the process, what you're able to do is come on the other end and give up Marcus Johnson, who means nothing to your organization, and a 5th-round pick to get a guy that's been a 3-time Pro Bowler, a Pro Bowler 3 consecutive seasons, a guy that has World Championships, Super Bowl experience. He's a versatile guy that can play all over the defensive line. Basically, the Eagles added strength to strength here and gained some additional positional versatility out of him. They got another high-end veteran who still has some game and some life left in him with championship experience. All the while, for Michael Bennett, in terms of a personality fit, it would seem like Philly would be a good situation for him. He can't come in there and pretend like he knows better than everybody else because, the Eagles just won the Super Bowl. So he can't do that. He's also coming into a locker room with guys like Malcolm Jenkins and Chris Long and many others where there is a certain level of social awareness there and social consciousness there. And as a result, Michael Bennett will fit right in. It's also, when you look at the Vegas incident and the discrepancies in his stories and some of the other things that involved Michael Bennett in recent years in Seattle, there comes a point in time where that acted kind of worn thin for all parties involved. Now he goes into Philadelphia, and none of that stuff's ever happened there. So it's a fresh slate. It's a chance for Michael Bennett to potentially end his career on a high note in the right way. All the while, the Seahawks do him a favor, it feels like to me in a certain way, by saying, we're taking a guy that's meant so much to us as an organization over the past several years and giving him to a team that has an even better situation than we currently do, where they just came off of winning a Super Bowl, and will bring back a lot of those key cogs and key pieces, and they could be right back in the mix again in 2018 and 2019. So for the Eagles' standpoint, this makes an absolute world of sense. Yes, Michael Bennett is going to be 33 this year, but he's still a player. He's still a pretty good player. And knowing that, yeah, you're paying him something, but you didn't have to give up much in terms of draft pick compensation to get him. And now you throw him into a defensive line with Fletcher Cox and Derek Barnett and Brandon Graham and Chris Long and Vinnie Curry and Timmy Jernigan. I mean, the Eagles, beyond question, have the best defensive line group in the National Football League. They probably did before, and they most certainly do now by adding a 3-time Pro Bowler who, again, to me, was still the single most important person on that Seahawks championship defense in 2013. Like, this is a huge deal for the Philadelphia Eagles. Sometimes you got to be careful when you go out there in the trade market and you go chasing names and chasing past reputation and past performance. But like I said, with Michael Bennett, he's at least got another 1 or 2 years of decent to high level play in him. And the Eagles did not give up much to get him. So I feel like the Seahawks come out of this deal well. Even though they didn't get a ton out of it, they got something out of it, and they cleared some salary cap space. The Eagles come out smelling well on this because they don't have to have Michael Bennett. That's a great thing for them. If Michael Bennett comes in there and kind of mouths off and he isn't performing up to snuff and he's creating issues, then they could just cut him. They're not desperate for him. They don't have to have him. He is a luxury player for them. An important luxury player, but still a luxury. And that's a good position of power and leverage for the Philadelphia Eagles organization to be in. And this also is a way late in his career for Michael Bennett to potentially have a chip on his shoulder because he might be pissed about the way things finished in Seattle. And he wants Philadelphia to get the best of what he's got left. So for me, I'm not surprised the trade happened. I was surprised the trade went to the Eagles. But I feel like it makes sense for all sides and should be a win-win for everyone.